in breaking news this afternoon from Atlanta, where police say the final inmate from a New Orleans jailbreak has been captured. Derrick was taken into custody after a brief standoff with officers. Now, this comes months after Groves and 9 other inmates broke out of the New Orleans Parish Jail back in May. The New Orleans DA described the community's reaction in just the last hour.
Everybody is sighing a collective sigh of relief, knowing that a person who was facing multiple life sentences is now in custody, and we look forward to holding him accountable for the crimes that he was already convicted of and the other crimes that he committed.
All right, I want to bring in CBS News national reporter Katie Weiss. Katie, you've been following this story for months. We've been with you following this story. What can you tell me about Groves' arrest?
Sure. Well, it started like something out of a movie back on May 10th. No one can forget that day, actually May 17th rather. But then it really ended just as dramatically. We have seen that U.S. Marshals Task Force captured Derrick Groves today. He was the last of 10 escaped inmates. They captured him at a home in Atlanta. Take a listen to how they did it.
We deployed a number of canisters of gas to help move him throughout the house, which he moved to the basement of the house. Soon after, Clayton County K-9 was deployed in the crawl space of the location and found him in that crawl space.
Now you might remember Derrick Groves was convicted of 2 counts of murder. So certainly this was one of the inmates that officials really had their eye on. And they did say that no one else was inside the house at the time.
They were focused so much on the one guy that had made the social media post, which was pretty funny to me because he was talking about getting into it basically with his girlfriend and that he was being framed. But this guy, he'd been on a run for a long time and nobody was paying attention to him whatsoever. As a matter of fact, it was almost as though he had vanished and nobody had been talking about him when that whole prison inmate escape situation happened down there in Louisiana. But this one was probably the most dangerous of them all, and he led them on a chase for months, literally months. And they say that he's facing multiple life sentences. Obviously, he escaped from the jail, and he wound up being in Atlanta. So how he got to Atlanta, I think that that's the bigger story. Who was helping him? Who's going to go to jail as a result of it? They caught all the rest of them in a matter of days. For him, he was escaped for a long time.
All right, Katie, all 10 inmates have finally been captured. So what happens now?
Yeah, so actually I think at this point now we just wait for Derrick Groves to be extradited back here to New Orleans. But, again, it was a slow process getting all 10 of these inmates captured. And I think also the next step is making sure that the jail is fully secured. You might remember that the inmates even taunted the officers as they left the facility back in May, writing messages on the wall saying "too easy." They were laughing about how lacking of security this facility was. And I even interviewed the sheriff a couple months ago, and she admitted that she was still working on getting stronger locks in many of the doors across the facility. So those are some of the next steps. But in the meantime, the Attorney General for Louisiana, Liz Murrill, she is also conducting a separate audit and investigation of the jail's security measures and into exactly how these men could have broken out in the first place. She issued a written statement today saying convicted murderer Derrick Groves has finally been recaptured in Atlanta after a brief standoff. He now faces charges for his role in the escape, and I will ensure that he is prosecuted to the full extent of the law.
None of that even matters because he was facing 2 life sentences anyway, and so he was never getting out of prison. He was never getting out of jail. He was on some "this is all I got to lose" type of stuff, and so that was only going to be a temporary situation. Let me go over to here because I think that the bigger story is that they had basically embarrassed everybody over there in Louisiana by having this guy on the run for all of this time after escaping from jail. This is actually better footage of him being captured and taken away in a police squad car.
We first joined you all live on the air about 40 minutes ago. They were just starting to leave after taking him back into custody. Can we show that video again? Can we re-rack that video of him in the car? At least that's who we think it is in the car. And now we're hearing from Brian Fair that he was alone in the house. So it's reasonable to assume that this is Derrick Groves in the back of this police cruiser. We heard from our reporters at the scene that he was taken out in handcuffs, that he walked away from the scene. And as Brian Fair just mentioned, no one was hurt in taking him back into custody. So a huge cooperative effort, both on the part of the U.S. Marshals and these multiple law enforcement agencies, both here in New Orleans and in Atlanta. And you can see, I'm curious to hear what he was shouting
yelling
outside of the car.
There's got to be some audio somewhere. We'll get that, of course. When you talk about the collaborative efforts here, Katie, another really big part of that you heard Brian talk about is the community. Had it not been for tips through Crime Stoppers, would we be here today?
Yeah, absolutely.
He said thanks to those tips, this is one of the ones that panned out that helped lead officers and authorities to this home in Southwest Atlanta to finally get Derrick Groves back in custody.
Yes, and as he mentioned, you know, and you mentioned, Mike, there are many people who have been affected by the crimes that Derrick Groves has been convicted of committing. You know, he was in the Orleans Justice Center waiting for his sentencing, at which point he would be transferred to a Louisiana State Penitentiary. Now, all the other inmates who've been recaptured have been taken to Angola, to the Louisiana State Penitentiary. It's reasonable to assume that if he is brought back here to Louisiana, that is where he would be housed, instead of being brought back to the Orleans Justice Center until he awaits additional charges, one would assume.
Yeah, I would think so.
Escape charges and, you know, all of those things that the other inmates have also faced. Now, there are going to be some questions for people in that community in Atlanta, here in New Orleans, whether or not there were people who assisted in his escape and assisted in keeping him on the run for the last 5 months. You would think that he would have had to have had help. So I know that they have not shown much mercy to the people who have been involved in doing just that with the other escapees. So as this investigation continues, you would think that those are all of the threads that they're going to continue to pull, and that there is a possibility, as we heard from Brian Fair, that there could be some more additional arrests as this investigation continues.
I had been hearing all throughout this whole situation prior to him getting arrested, and obviously this story died down a little bit, but prior to him getting arrested, I had been hearing about all of the different women and aunties and mamas and girlfriends and all of these people that were basically getting arrested and being charged, and they were not playing any games. They were telling you that anybody that helps and harbors a fugitive, which he had to have help, because there's no way in the world that this dude could have ended up all the way from Louisiana into Atlanta, and to be able to feed himself, to be able to somehow, some way secure shelter, to evade capture all of this time. And the only reason that they were able to capture him is because somebody called Crime Stoppers. And that means that it had to also be in the front of your mind, because by default, I'm not sure that I would be thinking about this guy. You know what I'm saying? Like, I wouldn't be thinking about, oh man, you know, is that Derrick Groves over there? He could have probably passed down the street and I would have never noticed him a day in my life. So shout out to the community, shout out to the collaborative effort. And I still think that this is an embarrassment on the state of Louisiana, its correction systems and officers. And I also think it's an embarrassment on whoever it is that's overseeing the jail. More importantly, I personally believe that we need tougher systems and jail reform, not in the way of trying to prevent people from getting arrested, but to have harsher penalties, to have people never want to come there again, and to make examples of people that destroy the community. Let me know what y'all think inside of the comments. Make sure y'all tap into the Patreon. Link is in the description. Teach Henley, 40% off your first order, 20% off for life. I love you. I appreciate you, and I really do appreciate you guys. Tap into the Patreon. The link is in the description. We got great things in there for you guys.